Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Monday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. James Westling is off for the next few days. In for him is our producer, Taman Turner, T Chains, along with myself, Ari Temkin, here on Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. So good to be back. It's been, I don't know, 9 days since we last had a live show in any capacity here on Big 12 Radio, as we've spent the last week plus with Taman. What give us a sense here of what we've just heard on Big 12 Today over the last 2 weeks.
Man, we have had a lot of different interviews from all of the Big 12 head coaches. Our new head coaches like Colin Klein, Jimmy Rogers, that was fun. We've heard from the players. We heard Bear Bachmeyer. We heard Drew Mestemaker. I know they've been on the program before, but I mean, we had Jaden Craig from TCU.
DJ Lagway from
Yeah,
Baylor.
DJ Lagway. Yeah, I mean, we had Scott Draper, from the Big 12. We had Mike Golick Jr. from TNT, JB Long. I mean, we have had an amazing amount of content and interviews, and it's been fun over the last week and a half.
Yeah, I mean, every coach, talked to 16 different representatives from each school. The only coach we didn't get a chance to visit with was, of course, Deion Sanders. But beyond that, we spent the last week plus getting you caught up on everything that we were able to do as a part of Big 12 Media Days. And in case you missed any of those, are the interviews available now, Taman, for on our podcast, or how can people find the interviews whenever they want?
Yeah, I mean, starting off, they're going to be on our power hours today, and they've been running all week, and you will see them on our podcast right after the show.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you haven't yet checked out our Big 12 Today Power Hours, you get Big 12 Today each and every weekday morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Then the show replays, and then today's Power Hour following the show replay will be our Media Day interviews with Billy Fritz, Kenny Dillingham, and Scotty Frost. Those start at 1 o'clock Central. Plus, their Power Hour interviews from Media Days will be Power Hour number 2 will be Kalani Sitake, Joe McGuire, and Dave Aranda. And then Power Hour number 3 today features Mike Golick Jr., Connor Wigman, Amari Thomas, and Scott Draper. Plus, later on in the show, if you missed Rich Rod or Morgan Scally or Willie Fritz, plus Devin Dampier will recap what they had to say and sort of go over uh, the last the last piece before the season begins. We've seen since Big 12 Media Days, ACC Media Days. Now we've got SEC and Big 10 Media Days this week. So a lot going up in the Media Days world, and especially as we get closer and closer now to the start of college football. The NFL is a week away from reporting for training camp. I know that most teams will start training camp a week from today, or at least travel out to their training camps a week from today, and then start practices within the next 2 weeks. So football is here, even as we leave football behind, with the World Cup finalizing this weekend. Jamin, did you get a chance to watch the third place game of the World Cup final last night?
So the third place game on Saturday was amazing because England went up 4-0, and then out of nowhere, France came back, made it 4-3, and then obviously England ended up winning 6-4. And then yesterday you had the final between Spain and Argentina. Man, that was a crazy game. Despite it being 0-0 for 90 minutes of the game, Spain was really able to neutralize Argentina. Argentina didn't have a shot. I mean, but for some reason they were still in it. Spain just, from what I read and learned about Spain, they just kind of demoralized every will out of you, and they did that to Argentina. Neutralized Lionel Messi. I mean, it was insane, but it was a great final.
Yeah, I mean, look, the final, Spain was the best team all tournament. And, Messi may have been the best player, although I'm not even convinced of that after watching the Spain Argentina game. But I mean, Spain was in complete control for the entire game. So, I mean, they were the ones dictating the terms. They were the ones with the ball the most, most of it. Argentina's goalie just was the difference maker that kept this game as close as it was. I mean, there were some dynamite saves that he had. It was a really good final. Not as much action maybe as you're hoping for. And then, of course, yeah, the third place game. It's funny that England's manager, like, had he just sort of in the semifinal against Argentina, had he been a little bit more successful in employing more of an open style like he did in the third place game, they may have beaten Argentina. I mean, the whole thing was they went up 1-0 on Argentina in the semifinals and then just I mean, closed it up. They played not to lose. And in any sport, no matter if we're talking about football, basketball, whatever, soccer, you play not to lose, you're going to lose. And that's, I mean, that's what happened is England went up 1-0 in their game against Argentina in the semifinals, and they just kind of packed it in and decided like we've just got to hold them here and we'll win and go to the championship. And of course, Argentina scores twice, in the final few minutes and ends up playing in the World Cup final. Who knows if England would have gone, how that would have gone. But and then England, of course, opens it up in the third place game, which, I mean, you don't have anything to lose in that game, so you open it up. Just kind of a devastating approach from a coaching perspective, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Whenever you play not to lose, that's usually when you lose. I mean, it's the you do the exact opposite when you play that way. I do want to note the credit that you gave Argentina's goalie yesterday. He had 11 saves, which was a World
Oh,
Cup
it was
final record.
ridiculous.
Yeah, he was insane because Spain was attacking and attacking, and he kept them in the game. Because if he had missed even two saves, I mean they would have been over early. But kudos to Spain. They're the World Cup champs. It was fun, I think, for this country. I mean, I know soccer isn't really big in America, but I think it was cool the fact that it was here and you saw people getting like involved in it. You saw the international community come to the US. I mean, it was here in Dallas, part of it at Dallas Stadium, AT&T Stadium. So I think it was fun. It was great. It was a great World Cup, and I look forward to 2030.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So the third place game, it's funny. Before the third place game, I had to do some research on it to figure out like what's the point of it. And obviously, the point of it is kind of, I'm sure, what most people expect, which is money, right? Another game, more inventory, works out well for FIFA. And the third place team ends up getting, I think, a couple of $1 million, which is pretty good for a team. So it gives them some incentive in order to keep playing and try to win. But I was trying to think through like, so I guess at one point the NFL had a third place game. It was like in the 60s, the NFL had some sort of a third place game, and then Vince Lombardi referred to it as the loser bowl of all loser bowls, which the loser bowl sounds like a great name for it. I was just trying to think through like how much interest would there be in a third place game in college football? Because we've never seen that because we only, newly have an installed playoff.
Right.
Would that go over probably about as well as a third place game would in any other American sports or American venue?
Americans love winning. The only way that
It's not that we
we
love it, it's all we do.
right, right. The only like way a loser bowl would work for Americans in college football or any sport is if there's some incentive to it. We have to win something despite us losing.
Well, right.
And
And I would think like, you could make the case that like, oh yeah, many of the bowl games that exist now are more of like the loser bowl, quote unquote, type of situations. But when we talk through some of the major positives of those bowl games, I mean, you already have a situation in which guys are going to rest and not play. So, I mean, there's just no way a third place game would work in college football. It'd probably be the last place it might work. But yeah, I mean, it any third place games or matches, it feels like just have all died off within American culture just because of how obsessed we are for winning in sports. And I mean, it makes sense. Like for the Olympics, like it makes sense. You should have a third place match. There should be, like there should. I get it, but it makes such little sense in any other competition.
right.
Even though I will say the third place game was actually pretty entertaining because the teams played like they had nothing to lose and it was
Right,
wide
right.
open and it was fun. It was like an all-star game.
It looked like England was going to have the all-time collapse, but then they were able to hold on. Let me ask you this. Let's base on last year's standing. So Texas Tech wins the Big 12. BYU is the second place team. What does Utah get? What would have Utah gotten last year?
For a third place game in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about it just like nationally,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, good question. Well, and in the case of the playoff, it's easy to determine what a third place game would look like based on the two teams that lose in the semifinals. But like in a standings type situation, right? I mean, Did Utah tie with anybody for third? I'm trying to now think of just the standings from the top off the top of my head.
It was Tech, BYU, Utah, Houston, Arizona.
Without any ties, right? Like,
I believe so. I'm gonna confirm that.
yeah. Well, I mean, FIFA still does it because, because they still get money to
I
pay for
get
it. So,
yeah, no, I totally get it. But I don't know why I can't find the football standings right now. But
congratulations to Spain, by the way, the second World Cup championship in their history. Only 8 countries have ever won a World Cup championship. Spain, in its second appearance in the World Cup final, wins it. The other countries, if I can think of those off the top of my head, that have won the World Cup. So Spain is obviously one of them. Italy's another one. Uruguay won 2 of the first 3. England won in 1966. Brazil's won the most. Germany's won the second most. That's 6. Argentina's obviously won. That's 7. And the last one that I'm forgetting is France. So
wow.
mostly European countries. France, Italy, England, Spain, you've had Uruguay won 2 of the first 3. They're kind of the outlier at this point. Brazil's won the most. Germany's the other European nation. They've won the second most. And then Argentina as well. So Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil from South America and the rest of the winners, all 5 of the other winners in the history of the World Cup. Only 8 ever have won it. And Spain became the 8th just a few World Cups ago when they won it. Since then, it's been Germany, France, and Argentina yet again. So, I mean, look, the nations stay the best. I maintain in soccer and American culture that, like, if our best athletes played soccer, we'd be the best. But our best athletes play football and basketball, and they're developed to play those sports from a young age. If they were developed to play soccer from a young age, it'd be totally different. But yeah, football and basketball are kings, and that's why our
Yeah,
best athletes play.
no, 100% agree. I mean, I give this year's U.S. soccer team a lot of credit. I mean, I know they got blown out by Belgium in that one game, but you know, to me, they were doing something that we hadn't really seen in American soccer in a while. I mean, they were fun to watch. I hate they lost. They lost badly 4-1, but I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I mean, look, I think you're right. Like they were on track, but still, the furthest the any U.S. team has ever made is to the quarters,
right.
and this team once again fell short of doing that.
By the
And
way, for the record, Utah was at solely in third place last year.
okay, that's what I thought. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so like yeah, they were in position to do something that had never been done before by U.S. soccer, but that didn't exactly end up coming to fruition. And so it was just another disappointing finish for the U.S. men's national team yet again. All right, so a lot to get to throughout this week as we've been off for 9 days, playing back all of the interviews from Big 12 Media Days. We're excited to be back and back live to get you ready for the start of the season, which is just, a month away or so from now. First, what I want to do is sort of recap the high, level highlight, big picture topics that just sort of the biggest things that we talked about from Big 12 Media Days, and just looking over interviews that I did over the last few weeks with different publications. You think about some of the big things. I mean, I would just think like the number one thing that I've talked about and have been asked about beyond the Sorsby stuff would be Monster Energy. And I think initially some of the details of the Monster Energy deal came out, and the more information we've gotten, the better we see that this deal is. So I would say, initially it was like, oh man, what are we expecting out of this? Now that we've sort of had the full details, many of them leaked, I think this ends up becoming a much better deal than maybe we initially thought. And I think it starts with the fact that it's just extra money from a jersey patch standpoint. We've seen since, that other schools have come out and announced jersey patch sponsors. So, this basically gives them a second piece of inventory for that. So there's really no issue with that. Plus, from an on-field branding standpoint, that's the Monster is actually undertaking the cost of that. And then on top of that, and I know Jason Shear from Wildcat Authority does a fantastic job of covering Arizona, pointed this out, that there's actually a marketing match here, especially from international marketing, where Monster is contractually obligated to feature the Big 12 in its international marketing campaigns, which is huge, those assets. And then, I mean, ultimately, high level, I think this is just another example of the partnership between Redbird Capital and the Big 12 and just how good of a deal this is for the Big 12 in terms of just helping to broker these, high level commercial deals with big brands. So initially, this deal looked like, okay, what does this mean, and what are the big things? And I just think now that we've had a week or so to sit and a lot of the details sort of marinate and come out, we see that this is only a positive deal, and like big picture, only really enhances the connection and the connectivity and the partnership between Redbird Capital and the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that Brett Yormark doesn't make bad deals, number one. And number two, I think that this isn't only just for football, it's going to be for basketball too, which is pretty awesome. And I also just think that, when it comes to the Big 12, we've been wanting these big sponsorship deals for the conference. The SEC and the Big Ten have been getting credit for years for getting these type of deals done. But now it's the Big 12 term. They're like, hey, we're just as much at the adult grown-ups table as the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're proving it with these deals.
Yeah, and I think what's most important again in terms of that is just that the Brett Yormark is not just tasked with raising the revenue profile for the Big 12, but doing it in ways that the SEC and the Big Ten won't. I think that's like figuring out creative ways that the Big 12 or that the Big Ten and the SEC won't match the revenue that you're bringing in. And I think the Redbird deal, is something that at this point the SEC and the Big Ten don't need to or don't want to do. And, again, as Redbird and the Big 12 become more intertwined from a business dealing standpoint, the harder that becomes to duplicate. And that is, to me, the biggest aspect of this Redbird deal that people probably aren't understanding or talking about as much. Like the headline here is that Redbird was going to loan Big 12 schools 30 million apiece at a pretty high rate, and there were, in terms of that loan, and each Big 12 team said no. But like the subtext of this deal is the commercial opportunities that this brings, and Redbird is very much involved with Monster, especially from a sports partnership standpoint. So, again, huge deal. Some of this stuff can kind of become, I think, like the business stuff is not as much fun to talk about as the football stuff. I understand that, but it doesn't diminish the importance of talking about this stuff, or at least what this stuff brings. In terms of the other, Big 12 major topics, I think from media days, the Texas Tech stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with Chris Level from the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network. But obviously that was front and center to a degree at Big 12 media days. What else, Tama, do you think was sort of the big stories or takeaways from media days, from being there for the 2 days we were a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember when you and James were sitting down with BYU, where they are going to be in this conference. I mean, you guys sat down with Bear Bachmeyer, Zach Lasker, and LJ Martin, and each team is determined to obviously win the Big 12. This is the optimism here. I loved what we heard from Willie Fritz, and I think over at Houston, Willie Fritz is ready to bring this Houston team to a new level. All he's done is won, and he wants to continue to win. So I think there's a lot that's going to happen. There was talk, I know Brett Yormark talked about college football playoff expansion. He talked about, he got into it, a little exchange with Texas Tech, which I know we'll talk about a little bit later. There was a reporter there, and the fans, how they feel about Brett Yormark. But I think that we learned a lot, and I think that it's the beginning of what will be a very optimistic year for the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, a lot to break down, including the Sorsby Tech and clearing the air for the Big 12. Plus, there's something that I need to get off my chest when it comes to Tech, because I feel like there are a lot of Tech fans that are upset with the Big 12 for the wrong reasons right now. We'll get into that coming up next. It's all on the way as we continue breaking down what we heard a couple of weeks ago from Big 12 Media Days. I am Ari Temkin. James is out for the next couple of days. We've got T-Chains producing and filling in today for James. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. So great to be back after a short hiatus, after Big 12 Media Days. But if you were able to tune in over the last week, you heard every single coach in the Big 12, players that were represented at Big 12 Media Days. You are locked in and ready. If you've been tuned into Big 12 today throughout the entire football offseason, you are locked in and loaded and ready to go for the football season because we had series after series after series. We ranked the top five newcomers at every position. We ranked the top five players at every position. We did a deep dive on the road to Arlington. We did the consensus in which we came up with BYU as the top team in the Big 12 as the consensus in our consensus rankings. And of course, we had all these players and coaches and interviews joined us from Frisco, from the Star in Frisco just a couple of weeks ago as part of Big 12 Media Days. So we are locked and loaded for the season to start in just a month from now. Taman Turner is in with myself. I'm Ari Temkin. James is off for the next couple of days. It's Big 12 today. And of course, make sure to check out the brand new and incredible Big 12 app featuring Big 12 Radio. Download the Big 12 app today. You can check out Big 12 Radio in the app, get breaking news, scores, highlights. It's all part of Big 12 on the brand spanking new Big 12 app featuring, of course, Big 12 Radio. All right, let's talk a little Texas Tech because obviously Texas Tech, beyond the monster deal, was the big story from Big 12 Media Days. And there's, I think, Taman, like something that I keep hearing from Tech fans that I think we need to clear up just so there's no confusion. So, we had the blogger fanboy who questioned Brett Yormark with a long soliloquy at Big 12 Media Days, sort of asking, why is Tech treated differently? But he did it in a grandstanding way that was not necessarily conducive to the situation.
Can we play that?
Yeah,
We
sure.
have it available. Let's play it.
Bill and welcome to the game. Bishop, Texas Tech got fined over tortillas, and tortillas were banned outright. OSU paddles broke an always make a rule, has a tradition exemption. Sorsby never played a snap for the Red Raiders. Big 12 sued them anyway, while Cincinnati hasn't been yet touched. You're selling greater than 12. Why should Texas Tech fans believe it?
Well, that's a bad
You
question.
sit, let me come closer to you. Stand up. Ask that question again, and I'm going to give you the answer I want to give you. So go ahead.
Texas Tech got fined for tortillas, and tortillas were banned outright. OSU has had paddles that were given a noisemaker exemption back in 2012. Sorsby never played a snap for the Red Raiders, and yet there's a lawsuit. Cincinnati has yet to be touched. You're selling greater than 12. Why should Texas Tech fans believe them?
No, I didn't say greater than 12. You misquoted me. I said we're going forward as 16 strong, and that's my answer to your question. But thank you for that question. Appreciate it.
All right. So once again, just a horrible question. Again, there were probably some legitimate questions within there that he could have asked, but he didn't really ask them that way. Now, I think like the one thing that Texas Tech fans seem to just continually rally around right now is the fact the Big 12 is suing Texas Tech, because I've heard a lot of Texas Tech fans talk about that. Let's actually talk about what that actually means, because when you say that, oh, well, this entity is suing that person or entity, then it sounds like you're looking for money from that person or that entity. In this case, that's not the case here at all. And I think we talked about this from the start. The Big 12 is suing Texas Tech in a deal that's basically private governance versus political muscle, right? So the news that came out over this last week is that Cody Campbell conveniently donated a quarter or $275,000 roughly to Ken Paxton's campaign before Paxton levied this threat to the Big 12. So we can kind of see a straight line there between Campbell's political dealings and how that might have influenced Paxton in what he did for the Big 12. Now, the good news here is that Paxton, in his threat, actually provided a huge opportunity for the Big 12. what's important to note is, yeah, the Big 12 is technically suing Texas Tech, but they're not seeking financial damages. Okay. That's number one. So I think for Texas Tech fans, you have to understand this is not a traditional suing situation here where you're looking for financial damages. They're asking a federal judge to allow the league to discipline its own members, in this case, Texas Tech, without interference from Paxton's office or any government entity. What the Big 12 is doing right now is trying to set a precedent for the Big 12 and in turn for other conferences to where they would not have to deal with state governments interfering or even national governments interfering with what conferences are doing. Right? So this is basically a First Amendment precedent lawsuit that the Big 12 is involved with. Technically, they are suing Texas Tech. What they're really doing is standing up for the Big 12's ability to enforce its own bylaws that would allow it to penalize members who are, run afoul of those bylaws. And Ken Paxton gift wrapped this for the Big 12. Paxton's letter is the impetus for this entire lawsuit that will allow the conferences this precedent. It was actually Ken Paxton played the perfect patsy here for the Big 12. And once again, got to give credit to BYU Law and Natalie Wyson, who Brett Yormark specifically mentioned, who is a two-time BYU graduate and a partner, at Sidley Austin, the big-time law firm that once employed J.D. Vance and Barack Obama. Yormark publicly credited her, basically saying that she provided legal guidance and executed the Big 12 strategy in this. But again, for Big 12 fans or rather Texas Tech fans that are upset right now at the Big 12 for suing Texas Tech, you have to understand they're not going to punish Texas Tech and they're not going to ask for money from Texas Tech. This is about legal precedent that would allow the league to enforce its bylaws against its members, which is what Ken Paxton tried to interfere with doing. That's it. That's all this is.
I try to look at all of this from a fan perspective. And listen, I understand Tech fans being upset that Sorsby couldn't play, but let's just flip it. For example, if you're a Tech fan, what did you expect the Big 12 or its other member institutions, your rivals in a sense, your other schools in the conference, what did you expect them to do? Just lay down and do nothing? I mean, the Big 12 had to do something. When Ken Paxton did get involved, of course, there's politics involved. He's in the middle of a U.S. Senate campaign. Did you expect Yormark to just say, okay? Like, I don't understand. Listen, I understand them being upset. Sorsby, I think we all agree, would have been very beneficial to this team. But it just, the notion that, we heard Dylan give that question, what did you expect them to do? You get what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know why you're upset at the conference. You're pointing out, tortillas or, what happened at OSU or whatever. But to me, did you really expect Sorsby, the situation, to do nothing? I can understand perhaps maybe you being mad that Cincinnati isn't getting, hasn't gotten the scrutiny that Texas Tech has gotten. But all the other stuff to me was completely irrelevant. And I think you're absolutely right when it comes to, money and politics getting involved. I mean, they're not suing for the sake of money. They're suing because, with Ken Paxton kind of gave them the green light to sue.
Right. No, exactly. Ken Paxton's letter provided the opportunity for the Big 12 to challenge this on First Amendment grounds.
Right.
And all they're seeking is a declaratory judgment. Easy for me to say. They want basically a judgment from a lawyer that says that, hey, this is against the First Amendment, that these conferences are allowed to govern themselves, and that without that threat, the Big 12 have not been able to file a lawsuit. And in this case, will most likely win this lawsuit, get the judgment, and have that precedent. Without that, they wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's disingenuous to just say, well, the Big 12 is suing Texas Tech and they should stop suing the Texas Tech. It has nothing to do with Texas Tech. It's about a precedent that Texas Tech and Ken Paxton more specifically allowed for them to do. And if anything, it's a creative, extremely important piece of legislation that will, I think, impact college sports for a long, long time. And look, I mean, yes, to your point, like, there are legitimate questions about Cincinnati and what they knew and their involvement. And again, like, going back to the question, like, had that been asked in the right way, I don't think I certainly wouldn't have been as critical of the blogger questioning your mark. It was just the way in which you grandstanded to light the questions up. So
Right. He brought up things that weren't really relevant. The basic question, if you
it was
had
grandstanding. It wasn't
right,
even
exactly,
non-relevant.
100
It's like, what are you saying here? Like, get to the point. This is a
right,
question and answer. This is not your commentary.
right. No, 100% agree. And I agree with you. Like Cincinnati, that's a legitimate question, a legitimate argument debate. But again, from a fan perspective, what did Tech fans expect to happen? That would be my question.
Yeah. Texas Tech, by the way, secured future naming rights to their stadium. Jones AT&T Stadium will now be referred to as Galaxy Stadium in a landmark agreement, a 15-year landmark naming rights agreement with Galaxy, which will incorporate NIL opportunities and investments into the West Texas region. So Jones AT&T is now Galaxy Stadium. Pretty cool name for a stadium, I'll say. In terms of branding and stadium naming, I'd say that's up there. Calling your stadium Galaxy Stadium, pretty cool now.
The game at the Galaxy.
That's right. So congrats to Texas Tech for getting that done. Look, it's interesting because I would say from a football perspective, Taman, like we came out of Big 12 media days and Tech's still the overwhelming favorite here. Our Big 12 today consensus poll made BYU the favorite, but we're in the minority here. Most have Tech winning the Big 12. And it's interesting because, and we'll visit with Chris Level here coming up momentarily, but Joey seemed pretty optimistic that we could see Will Hammond pretty quickly off the bat here. And so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he pointed out that he could be available week 1. I doubt it because it feels unnecessary to have him available for week 1. My assumption will be either Kirk Francis will start the first couple of weeks before Hammond starts week 3. Because that is, I mean, when you look at this Texas Tech schedule here, the Tech Houston game week 3 is like maybe the one slip up point just from a preseason expectation standpoint. That's their toughest Big 12 game.
I 100% agree. And the fact that Will Hammond, like to your point, I'm sure he could play against, ABC or excuse me, Abilene Christian or Oregon State. But when it comes to that game against Houston, you're playing a team that you beat last year. Houston's going to want a revenge. It's a Friday game. Connor Wegman's going to be ready. Amari Thomas is going to be ready. I think how ready will Will Hammond be? He might be good to play, but is there some rust? Is there, something? Is his knee 100%? Maybe it's 90%, and 90% is good. But I'm a little hesitant. You mentioned them that being their biggest game. I'm a little hesitant to say they're automatically going to win it because this Houston football team's a really good team.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, aside from that game, Texas Tech hosts Arizona State on October 17th. They lost to Arizona State last year. They get Oklahoma State on November 14th at Oklahoma State and then TCU to close out the season. I would say from a preseason, and then Arizona. I mean, Arizona is a team, again, that second tier that could certainly break through. But for me, like maybe the toughest game on their schedule is that week 3 game, Friday night against Houston. And we'll see if Hammond's available for that game. All right, let's visit more with what's going on in Lubbock, especially after fallout from Big 12 Media Days with Chris Level, our buddy from the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network and Locked On Red Raiders. That's next. I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
On the left-hand side, starting his 50th game this afternoon. Looking long, it's Virgil. He's got it inside the 15. He beat Henderson again.
To corral those defenders, they do a good job there.
Reverse, Virgil. Reverse. Virgil. Oh yeah. A hop, skip, and a jump touchdown. Virgil is going to take it inside the 35. Goal. Morton with all kinds of time. Virgil! Reggie! Oh my goodness, what's happened to Virgil today? Hammond, they throw it up top again. Now they're showing off. Touchdown, Reggie Virgil. Wow.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. We are joined right now by Chris Level of Locked On Red Raiders and the Red Raider Radio Network. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you fine gentlemen on this lovely Monday morning?
You're doing fantastically. You got the guns up this morning. I love it. I got to get your guns up. It's funny to me because there's so many great people in Lubbock, and obviously so many great people that we deal with, including you, Chris, and Joy McGuire, and Kirby Hocutt, and the PR department and SID group. All great people that I just feel bad that everybody involved here that I'm friends with has had to deal with the ongoing Brendan Sorsby saga here. Because I know, nobody asked for it, obviously, other than the actor himself, the person involved who never played a snap for Texas Tech football, but is somehow forever intertwined with Texas Tech football.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, yeah, I think everybody, it's just been a weird dynamic. People were very passionate, very loud, very angry. We've talked about this some. I feel like there's a couple of folks that I share podcast space with that are in other markets that I feel like my relationship with them has changed because of what has gone on. I don't know what but just because I'm the Texas Tech guy, it's been weird. And you know there's a lot of chatter on the socials back and forth. There's the real people, then there's the anonymous social media accounts that you don't really know who's running it that are popping off, and it all just speaks to one thing. It all speaks to one thing, to which we can all agree, and no one's going to dispute this, not a single person. Boy, do we need football to get here. Because it's amazing how much everybody will be friends again. Everybody will calm down. Everybody will worry about the other stuff or forget about all this stuff once the season starts. But we're sitting here still semi wallowing in it right now, but yeah, we still got another 6 weeks to go before the ball gets kicked off. Maybe 5 weeks.
Yeah. We
So-
don't forget about week 0 because that's
yeah,
it.
that's right. That's right.
I'm curious because there is so much. It feels like a lot of times when it comes to social media, like the vocal minority can become the majority, or it appears to be. Like I'm assuming there's some Texas Tech fans that didn't want Sorsby to be eligible to play this year and felt
Well,
like
very much so.
what he did was,
Mhm.
he shouldn't play and represent Tech. Can you give us a sense here of like just the reality in Lubbock of the people, you talk with? I'm sure many that engage with you that are part of that, maybe, vocal minority. Just give us a sense here of like the real situation in Lubbock versus like the sensationalization of this whole situation.
Yeah, I'll just be honest with you. Whenever it first came out, there was plenty of fans. We've run a message board. It's associated with Rivals, and now it's associated with On3, which are combined for 20 since 2002, so 24 years. That's where the large and there was a bulk of them when the initial news came out in April. He's got to go. Can't do it. And then you start to sort through it, and what happens with people is like this is why it's fascinating, the recruiting battles that people have and fan bases have. They just want to win. So when it appeared that people were against you and that you're starting to try to fight for the kid, you just want to win. It's something. It's a win. I got nothing else to root for right now. Whatever. And so, but there was plenty of people that didn't think he should have been eligible. Look, I think I think that the people that have suggested that there were folks inside the Texas Tech camp that didn't ultimately think he would win the injunction. There's probably some truth to that. But then when he does, it's like, okay, we can't, bail on this kid now.
Right.
Like we just can't as a human, as a whatever. So anyway, but yeah, I don't think everybody was on the same page. But I can tell you this: everybody is ready to I think move on. I didn't think there was a world where when he is going to go into the supplemental draft and then he's declared ineligible for that or whatever, that being in Lubbock permanently was going to be a good thing for this football program. Him just being, I think he's being allowed to come by and do whatever he wants. He just doesn't need to be a public figure on the sideline at games. And you know what? I just think that's unfortunately for all involved, everybody's just got to turn the page there and move on. But this has been the damnedest thing I've ever dealt with, and I'm sure that you guys too. It's just been. I think relationships in some ways have been permanently changed with some folks, and that's sad.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially
That-
like just speaking to you in particular, like you didn't gamble on games. You didn't you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I know. We and again, it's just like and I do understand where Joey came at it from this standpoint. He was criticized for saying this, but it's like, hey man, folks, he didn't commit like a murder here, man.
Yeah.
Like but people were just, this was the one thing that everybody was going to rally for, and it just I just and you know the irony of Michigan. Hey, we're not going to schedule you guys in anything. And then are we reading the news in the last couple of weeks with the University of Michigan and what all's gone on up there? That's the part that has bothered me.
Right.
It's like
The moral high horse. Right. Totally.
you open your mouth and you got a bone flying out of your mouth with all the skeletons you got in your closet, and it's just like it's a bad look for a variety of people. But again, kickoff can't get here quick enough.
Yeah. Nobody loves themselves more than Michigan does.
Right.
Nobody is more moral and has the moral high ground than Michigan.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, to your point, has anybody paying attention? No? Okay, cool.
I mean,
Got it.
yeah.
All right. Um, Joey at media days, he was pretty outspoken about, hey, Will Hammond could be ready to go week 1. Hey, we're gonna talk
He will
football
be.
now. We're gonna talk football now. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Bring it.
Um, it's does he need to be 1 and 2? I feel like he's got to be ready for the Houston game. Now, maybe that means playing one of those weeks to like be almost like a rehab stint so that you could see how he is. But give us your read here on the quarterback situation.
So one of the on one of the outlets during Big 12 Media Days, Joey kind of gave you a little insight into Hammond and like what was going on there because people, because I've been asked, hey man, are they moving up the timeline? Is this like, are they forcing this? And Joey had just said back in April, man, we need him ready by week 3. This is when before the Swearsby thing came out, just because of the importance of the Houston game. We want to make sure we got all, hey, so that's kind of the goal. But it was this week 3, week 3, week 3. To which point Joey tells the story that Will Hammond went into the trainer and was like, "Hey man, is there something wrong with me? Like, why does Coach keep talking about week 3? I thought we were on track for much earlier than that." And so that's just what, rightfully so, they quoted the head coach, and that's what he had said. But the timeline was always well before that. Now, I can guarantee you this. I don't know what this looks like. I know you guys were discussing this earlier, but his first snaps won't come against the University of Houston. There's no way. Now, I still would tell you right now that I think that he starts the first couple of games. I think they will limit his exposure in those games and see how that goes. Maybe even have a plan to play more than one quarterback in those first 2 games with whatever that looks like. But he is on track. He was always on track for much earlier than this. But again, is there a setback between now and then? And is he at 80% or 95%? And but I'll tell you, if he'll just hand it off and get rid of the ball quickly, you'll be just fine for the first couple of weeks for sure.
Chris, do you think that Houston is the toughest game of their schedule, or do Ari and I have that wrong?
I think it's probably that one, or it's the TCU game on Thanksgiving night. But we won't know what TCU will be at that point or what you will be. But because the Houston game is so early, both teams should be relatively healthy, and there's a reason they moved it to Friday night to showcase it. Yeah, I think that Connor Wegman and my one question about Houston is their front 7 on defense. I think that's where the questions are with them, but everywhere else they have a lot of answers and they're very well coached, as we know. So that's going to be a doozy. Yes, it's going to be a long weekend for somebody that weekend if you don't get that win on that Friday night for sure.
What is the one position group that you think is a question mark that is actually going to be a really positive position group for this team?
Okay, like so what's the question that ultimately is going to be much better than people think?
Yes.
It's either I think people know enough about the running backs, right? Because the Quentin Joyner, I've tried to tell you guys about him. I just don't think the country or the region doesn't know enough. To me, it's probably offensive line. I know Cincinnati's gotten a lot of credit. I know BYU's gotten a lot of credit. I think this is going to be one of the best offensive lines they've had here in 10 years.
Wow.
It was okay last year, and it was okay enough to where you had a top 10 offense nationally, and we talked about all the red zone problems and how bad you were against Oregon, but it was still, they were churning it out and having to protect a quarterback with a broken bone in his leg and all that. But I think it should be much, much better. And that part excites me because I think they will be able to lean on people and dictate terms. And As Joey says, run the damn ball. His wife actually wears a hat to games, Debbie. It says run the damn ball. To which I just want to retweet it, or if there's a like button on her hat, but that's Joey. That's Joey in a nutshell. He's a defensive minded coach that wants to, play good defense and then just kind of hammer the ball at people. And I think they'll be able to employ the folks to be able to do that.
And the one thing that stood out more than anything to me, maybe under the radar here with all the Sorsby stuff, is it feels like I don't know that people realize how good of a coach Joey McGuire is. I feel like the one thing I've heard a lot about is like, yeah, like Joey, and it's like I think people just assume he's just the byproduct of good talent. And he's not really a good in-game coach, which I just totally disagree with.
Yeah, the biggest concerns for this whole program this year is the health of the quarterback position, and specifically Will Hammond, and then complacency. And that's really Joey's superpower, or his best attribute is the culture part of this thing. And in 2026, with NIL and all the things, if you get the culture part figured out and you can figure it out quickly, but that's why Kalani Sitake and Kenny Dillingham, these are some coaches that are very good in this category too. But that's Joey's best skill set, man. He loves this. He walks into this event knowing he's going to get grenades lobbed his way, and he's just smiling from ear to ear. He genuinely just loves to talk it, be about it, be around it, and it's infectious for sure. And now I guess he's the head Guardians of the Galaxy. Is that right? Because of the stadium name change. I mean, all those all the Guardians of the Galaxy thing are just running rampant right now. So insert AI graphic here.
That, and then he even had Sark kissing the ring at the Texas High School Coaches Association. That was
and you guys know this. When that comment was first made, it triggered a lot of Texas Tech folks. But if you listen to what Sark said, he was really taking a shot at the league, not Texas Tech, but he was kind of doing it in a way.
Right.
Yeah, but and I told you that really came at a heart from they're kind of hanging with us and beating us on some recruiting battles. So we need to point out some inadequacies here publicly. I mean, that's kind of where all that came from. But yeah, everybody's on the same page now. Funny how that works.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Chris Level, the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network, Locked On Red Raiders. You're the best, buddy. Appreciate you. Take care.
Hey, ELE, man. Everybody love everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Appreciate it.
Hope Alive. ELE.
Yes.
The best. Chris Level. Always fun to have Chris on with us from the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network and Red Raider and the Locked On Red Raiders podcast. All right, it's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We'll get you caught up on what's going on in the Protect College Sports Act. In fact, this week could be huge for the future of that. The strongest bill as it relates to college athletics ever. Will it make it past the Senate? We'll get into that next. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here's Martin on 2nd and 3, but he is met and tackled for a loss. Jacob Rodriguez making his first big moment.
Wigman to the air, and the pass is picked off by Rodriguez. And then he hurdles a Cougar and is still going. And finally brought down inside the 25-yard line.
Yelling at the line. Finally the snap. Avery Johnson on a straight ball came out again. It's out again. Pollock has it. Chase Brown. This is how you respond to Heisman hype. Rodriguez, touchdown.
You definitely need Sam Jackson. Handoff here as that one is taken away. Going the other way. Make it the 4th play of the game. That's a game changer. Take it to the house. It's Jacob Rodriguez.
They set him in motion. Look out for that screen action. Underneath, intercepted by Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez, the big play.
Come back to haunt him because and blowing teams out. Nice play in the backfield again by Rodriguez, taking down Connors for a loss.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, along with Taman T. Chains Turner. I am Ari Temkin. T. Chains is producing and filling in for James Westling, who's out for the next few days. I am Ari Temkin. Great to be back with you. So we were off for the last 9 days or so, post Big 12 Media Days, and a lot to break down. We'll have the highlights from coaches and player interviews coming up later on in the show today. We'll hear from Rich Rodriguez, what Rich Rod said during our interview with him at Media Days, plus Morgan Scally, Devin Dampier, and Willie Fritz, all coming up later on in the show today as we recap what we heard and big takeaways from Big 12 Media Days. One of the big stories right now, though, is the latest on the Protect College Sports Act, which at this point in time is the furthest through that any college sports bill has ever gotten. Now, it doesn't say much because it just made it out of committee, but it is the first time that a bill has been voted out of committee. It now hits to the Senate floor for a vote amongst the Senate, at which point, if it passes, will then go on to the House. The House will then have it in committee, will potentially go through and make some changes to it there, and then would eventually vote on it there, but still many more hurdles for the bill to pass through. What's interesting about this, maybe more so than anything, is this is one of the few bills, it feels like, that is not really party lines. You can't really figure out who will vote which way based on party lines. It's almost more of a state lines thing where depending on which state the senator is in could tell you which way they could vote. But again, it's worth noting for the first time ever that a bill has made it this far out of committee, which is something we haven't seen before and should make you somewhat optimistic. I also think just the latest on this from Ross Dellinger from On3, who's reporting on this, that lawmakers are making some concessions here in order to try to get this thing through. So lawmakers are now committed to trying to make this thing work and are trying to get concessions from the SEC and the Big Ten, that would allow for some of the lawmakers within those jurisdictions to vote for it. Right. So at this point, you've got lawmakers within certain jurisdictions from the Big Ten or the SEC that are against it. And lawmakers are trying to work with the SEC and the Big Ten to adjust some of the bill in order to make it more palatable for them. One of the changes to that would be that previously it basically said, the bill said that leagues that were the SEC and the Big Ten could not expand, meaning the threshold of revenue that those conferences were at put them ahead of the ACC and the Big 12. It would not have limited the Big 12's and the ACC's ability to expand. So basically, conference realignment was supposed to be killed by this bill, but it was specific to the SEC and the Big 10. Part of the expanded bill now includes the Big 12 and the ACC too. So where it was like, all right, if you make this threshold of money, which was specific to the Big 12, Big 10 of the SEC, well, then you cannot expand. Well, now that has, I think that irked the Big Ten and the SEC to the point to where now the threshold's been lowered to where it would include the Big Ten and the SEC, or rather the Big 12 and the ACC as well. So the Super League ban is still on. There is now openings potentially for G5 institutions. Basically, it says like the change in there was basically like you can't go Power 4 to Power 4, but you can go G5 to Power 4. It's basically the way that it was worded. That's one of the changes. Anything else, Taman, from your standpoint, stand out to you about the Protect College Sports Act?
Well, a lot. I mean, really, I think it's amazing how the United States Congress, this is the one thing that we can agree on. Sports brings people together, right? Democrats and Republicans alike, but I digress on that. But, more importantly, I think that, Senator Schmidt from Missouri said that, they likely have 60 votes. And if this has 60 votes, that's obviously on both sides of the aisle. You move it to the House. The House has a Republican slim majority, but there are a lot of Democrats. Maria Cantwell on the Senate side from Washington helped co-write this bill with Ted Cruz. And that means I think there will be Democratic support in the House as well. And then it would go to President Trump's desk. I think this would be a win for really college sports because obviously it has become unsustainable what we've seen from a financial side. At Ted Cruz, I actually thought said it best when he was on with Andy and Ari, when he said that, if the SEC and the Big Ten were to, combine, they'd basically be a G League for the NFL. And that wouldn't be fair to the Big 12. It wouldn't be fair to the ACC. And I'm glad that clause is in this bill, is in this package. I think, what will it mean going forward for expansion? What will it mean for going forward for, transfers and money? I think it's sorting that out. And it's, there is no bill that passes through the U.S. Congress that's a perfect bill, but I think it's definitely a good start.
Yeah. Let's actually hear what Ted Cruz had to say on part of Ari and Andy On3 about this bill.
You mentioned a super league. There's a provision explicitly in this bill that bans a super league. Look, one of the real risks is the SEC and Big Ten joining together. Now, I don't believe they would succeed. I actually think that they would lose the antitrust litigation that would be brought against them if they tried to form a super league. But whether they would win or not, this bill makes clear they cannot merge because you would essentially turn them into the NFL. They'd be the G League for the NFL. And you said, well, it wouldn't destroy the programs at other schools. It may not totally destroy them. It would just turn them into effectively high school football, where they would not be competitive. They would not be playing the major schools. Part of what's fun about sports is the Cinderella story. Look, a couple of years ago, Baylor won March Madness. It's hard to see that happening right now. Right now, the winners of the tournament are the people with all the money who could pay for the top athletes, and the smaller schools, it is incredibly difficult to be competitive. I want to maintain a system where, from a fan's perspective, you have the joy. Look, I was a freshman in college in 1989 when Princeton played Georgetown. We were the 16 seed. Georgetown was number one. Alonzo Mourning was playing. And we came within 1 point of being the very first 16 seed in history to beat a number one seed. That's an amazing thing about sports. That's fun for the fans, for the athletes, for the institutions. And if you suddenly have the Baylors and TCUs being relegated to non-competitive national level sports, that does enormous damage, not just to the athletic programs, but to the institutions themselves in terms of their alumni donations, in terms of their recruiting. I mean, you do real harm to universities across the country by letting that happen.
All right, some good points there made by Senator Ted Cruz, who is one of the co-authors of this bill. I would say, just from a high level, Taman, like this bill, the Protect College Sports Act, provides an antitrust exemption for the NCAA, which they're after. That way, they can have a defense against all of these lawsuits that are coming for them. It would codify the NIL rights federally, a national standard, replacing the state-by-state patchwork NIL that exists. Transfer and eligibility rules: one free transfer, a second transfer sits a year, 5-year eligibility window starting at age 19 or high school graduation. Media rights pooling does not basically amends the Sports Broadcasting Act, which would allow conferences to pool their rights together, but doesn't make it mandatory. It just allows for it. There's the ban on the Super League conferences above $700 million in revenue threshold, barred from merging or absorbing each other. There's protections for women's and Olympic sports. There's athlete protections, the private right of action to sue schools over NIL, health and safety and scholarships, long-term medical coverage. There's a Lane Kiffin rule in there, which is coaches can't leave for another school mid-season. Fan access, at least one free broadcast option for local football and basketball games. Now, it is deliberately silent on athlete employment. It does not take on whether athletes are employees or not, but it basically goes through everything there. Some of the most recent changes, per Ross Dellinger, are the allowance for G6 schools to basically be promoted up if invited. So that, in terms of allowing conferences to pool or to come together to form super leagues, basically this would allow for G6 schools to move up. Also, one of the other pieces that Ross Dellinger noted as a change would be ACC and Big 12 schools shifting to the SEC Big 10. That, again, before the SEC and the Big 10 were kind of put on a different level, where now this would include the ACC and the Big 12, which I think that's what mostly what Greg Sankey and Jim Phillips are pushing for. Private equity Super League ban stays in. NIL cap cleanup, fixing the associated entities language that actually swept multimedia rights deals under the cap and could have cost athletes millions. So adding that to the mix, which is something the SEC and the Big 10 need. And here's the thing, too, that I think is important to note here. If this bill passes, there's a chance that the SEC, if they don't like it, or the Big 10, could basically go out on their own. And there are many forces right now at play that could force those conferences to basically do their own thing. That's what's at stake here. Is, in some ways, politicians are sort of beholden to Sankey and to Phillips simply from the standpoint of, even in a win here, they could lose, because nothing could stop the SEC and Greg Sankey from saying, like, oh yeah, this is all well and good, but what we're going to do is we're going to leave. We're going to do our own thing. We're going to govern ourselves. We're going to come up with our own rules, and we're outside of the purview of what this political reach would be here. So there's a balance here between listening and managing what the SEC and the Big Ten want while making sure that like you're not putting too many concessions out there, while at the same time recognizing that like they could take their ball and go home if they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Jamie Pollard who said, if you're going to go ahead and do it, do it. Don't make the threats. Just if you're going to do what you're going to do, just go ahead and do it. I mean, Ted Cruz was specific in his comments when he said there would be what was it, an antitrust clause
Exemption.
there. Yeah. That would prevent them from doing that. And there would be some lawsuits that would probably come about if they were to do that. But to Ted Cruz's point, I pretty much agree with the senator. I think that with this bill becoming law, I think it makes it more attractive to sports fans, and that's what we're trying to get back for college sports. I mean, the notion that college sports has gotten out of control, the fact that we need a bill from Congress kind of proves that it's out of control.
Yeah, no, I think, we'll see if this is able to pass. Eric Schmidt, who's the senator that you mentioned, said in a recent quote that he believes they've got probably the 60 votes. The target for voting for this would be some point next week. That's at least what Ross Dellinger reported on this, the week of July 27th. So a week from today, it could be voted. Remember, the legislature goes on an August 7th recess for the rest of the summer. So the hope is that at least this gets out of the House, rather out of the Senate and into the House by the time the recess hits, and we'll see if that happens.
Do you think this bill will become law, Ari?
No, I'm skeptical.
Same. I'm skeptical more for political reasons. It's a
Yeah.
midterm election year. But let me ask you this. In 2027, when the new Congress comes in, does this thing finally get passed?
Look, I think there have been many bills so far that have come before it that I would say like this has at least cleared other steps. So like there should be optimism around that, So it's almost like you needed the next step in order to at least prove that you get to the next step. Because at this point, we had not seen anything that looked like they can get a bill passed to committee. So like this has at least cleared one hurdle. To think it would go from not getting out of committee suddenly to like being signed into law, I think is, I just don't. I think it's unlikely.
My thought process is I agree with you, but if they do pass it through the Senate, I do believe it will become law. There will be some changes, some small changes made.
You think if it gets to the Senate, it'll pass the House and will be done?
Yeah, but I don't think it'll happen before the election. I think it'll kind of get passed, moved a little bit. There'll be some changes in some of the clauses, but then it will eventually become law.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think in some ways it would be a good thing. I think it would not in totality be a good thing. And I think there would probably also be potential for lawsuits to come as a product of it. Like capping earnings would be interesting, and especially if challenged. That would be an interesting one. I think there's some other aspects of this that could potentially be challenged in court, and you'll have to see. You mentioned this earlier, Taman. It is a mess. There's no doubt about it. But I also think like the mess was part of the process that had to play out as this thing got completely, unwound. And just because there's a mess doesn't mean we should be afraid of the mess. Like it's a good mess. These are things that need to be sorted out. If we felt like, and I think the majority of people, whether they agree with the way that NIL has gone or not, would agree that athletes should be getting paid. That college athletes for years should have been getting paid. There should be some sort of compensation. So I think once you start at that point in time, you have to recognize that like that's not easy. Just that act alone is not something that's just like very easy and clear cut and easy to figure out. And like that, so this is what's played out now over the course of the last few years. It's been clunky, and I think it's in some ways turned off fans and made fans annoyed about this process and situation. But at the same time, like this is all something that it was impossible to ignore once this thing became unwound. And this is just all part of the process of putting it back together in a way that's, that makes sense for everybody involved here because you've got all different people. Like, so first off, you have the players, you have the labor force, then you have well, in this case, call them ownership, but it's the conferences and the schools, right? And every as opposed to the NBA or the MLB, where like the owners and players may not agree, but at least like owners are aligned and players are aligned. In this case, you've got the owners in this situation are the schools and then the conferences, which may not be aligned necessarily. And then each conference is not going to be aligned with other conferences. So again, like it's just not as easy in black and white as it appears because there's so many entities involved here, people and individuals involved that have a different criteria for what success looks like.
I'm glad you brought all of that up because I don't want anybody to get the nostalgia of everything was great pre-NIL. There was a mess there too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
to your point, there's a mess now, but it's a different type of mess. But it's getting cleaned up. The things that you mentioned, athletes not getting paid and whatnot, that was a problem. Yeah, there's a problem now, but it's a problem because you fix one mess. Yeah, there's another mess that still needs to be fixed, and that's what they're trying to do with this bill to clean it up even more.
Yeah. All right, that's Taman T. Chains Turner, our producer, filling in today along with myself, Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Coming up next, an interesting article that I think we need to hit on, which touches on who has the most difficult schedule in the Big 12. Who's the toughest conference schedule in the Big 12 this year? This from Brandon Judd of the Deseret News, and we'll dive into it next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Robertson. Uh-oh. That's picked off. Keith Abney with the pilfer.
West Virginia down 2 scores. They get a reprieve. Jacob Barrick fumbles and able to get it back. So on back-to-back plays as Keith Abney jars this one loose. From the 24, blitz coming. Pennington steps up. Penny goes down. Keith Abney the second, the corner blitz for the Sun Devils. So far, ASU has not surrendered a gain of more than 10 yards. Here's one that can happen in a hurry. Knocked out. A fumble recovered by Miles Rouser. Timeouts left for Rich Rodriguez. This is a must-have. 4th down and 4. And ASU takes it away. Keith Abney calls game. He needs 4. Handles a high snap. Lets it go. Right pylon. It is. Incomplete. Chris Don the target and a matchup of ones. Keith Abney wins this round.
Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Taman T. Chains Turner producing and filling in today for James Wesley. I am Ari Temkin. Great to be back with you after a week plus off, replaying interviews that we did. I shouldn't say replaying, playing interviews we did from Big 12 Media Days. You heard all 16 coaches. You heard 16 representatives from players, from Noah Fafita to DJ Lagway to Jaden Craig, the TCU new quarterback, to Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Parker, who I thought were fantastic.
You know what? You know one interview I loved that you guys did? Eric Morris. I think we've talked about Oklahoma State all offseason, but I would want to play for him. Like the way like his style, man. Oklahoma State. Listen, I know they have a still a big hill to climb. Their offense is going to be really good, but Oklahoma State, they might surprise people.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I mean, Morgan Scalley, man. I mean, I have a ton of respect for Kyle Whittingham as a coach, but like spending 10 minutes talking to Morgan Scalley was more fun than spending 15 seconds talking with Kyle Whittingham about anything football related. That's like pulling teeth talking to that dude. Again, his resume speaks for itself, but talking to Morgan Scalley is way more fun. It's something I'm much more looking forward to.
He has a lot more to say than Kyle.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. A lot more to say. It was fun to talk with him. All right. Brandon Judd from the Deseret News has a piece out. Who's got the toughest conference schedule in the Big 12 this season? And he's tiered it off. So he's got like the tier 1, the Big 12's version of the gauntlet. And so, I mean, for that, he's got Arizona State, Cincinnati, and TCU are the tier 1 gauntlet teams. I mean, look, it's hard to disagree with any of them. I would just say, though, that Cincinnati, to me, has the toughest schedule in the Big 12 this year. And it's a big reason why, from our consensus rankings, we've got Cincinnati last in the Big 12. When you think about the consensus top 5, and in our consensus top 5, we have BYU, Texas Tech, Houston, Utah, and Kansas State. So based on the Big 12 Today consensus top 5, Cincinnati plays Kansas State, Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, and BYU. They play all 5 of our consensus top 5 members. Plus, they play Texas Tech and Utah at home in back-to-back late October games. And then they close with 3 out of 4 on the road, including trips to Houston and Provo. So, the Deseret News has Arizona with the toughest conference schedule. I think it's Cincinnati, and I'm not even sure it's particularly close.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I have Cincinnati's schedule right in front of me, and Kansas State at home, at Arizona. And listen, I think that at West Virginia game will be tough. I know we're going to hear from Rich Rod later in the show, but I'm just like to myself, I'm looking at their schedule. Maybe Iowa State and Colorado is their best wins in conference this year, but everybody else I could totally see being a loss. And
Yeah.
I think Cincinnati, well, I've asked you this before. I think I asked this last time, I guess. When was the last time they won in November?
It's been quite some time. Yeah.
And they play at Houston, at Iowa State, Colorado. Maybe they didn't get it this year. Maybe. But, even if they win in November this year, are they winning in October? I don't know if that's going to happen.
Who else, like, what else stood out to you, Taman, in this article, just about like who, the Deseret News thinks is a tough one versus easy, what stood out to you?
I think that Arizona with yes, they have a tough schedule, but I think Arizona is a lot better than we're giving them credit for. I know they lost some guys on defense to the NFL. Fair enough. Not going to take anything away from that. But they went 9-3 with Brent Brennan last year, and I think he's a really good coach. One thing that I've said through all of the different segments that we've done all off season is I think continuity is a huge thing. And with Noah Fafita coming back, particularly on the offensive side, I think Arizona's in that tier. I think I'm going to pull up our power rankings, but I think we had them 7th in our power ranking.
Yes.
But I would not be surprised if they're better than that. I know they have a tough schedule, but I think they're part of that tough team that can beat some of those tough teams that they play.
Mm. Yeah, the other one that I think is sort of a miss is in tier three. He's got Houston, and like I think Houston's schedule is much more difficult than that. Like I think it almost should be at like the top level. When you look at Houston, so they don't play back-to-back home conference games. They have 5 Big 12 road games. They open up at Texas Tech on a short week. They visit Utah a month later. So they're playing 3 of our consensus top 5, Texas Tech, K-State, and Utah, all on the road. Baylor and West Virginia are in tier 2 with the same count of contender games and better venue splits. So it feels like Houston has a much more difficult schedule than the Deseret News gave them credit for. Again, no back-to-back home games and 5 road games, including opening up on a Friday night short week at Texas Tech. I think that's brutal.
I agree. At Texas Tech, at Kansas State, at Utah, but hey, they went 6-0 on the road last year. I know it's not last year, but one thing that you mentioned this earlier, Ari, and Chris Level mentioned this too, the importance of not just continuity but culture, and what Willie Fritz has set in Houston, culture. I mentioned Arizona, Brent Brennan, Noah Fafita, culture. I get their schedule is tough, but I think they're tough. So I think that they're right in the midst of beating teams that are kind of improving yet. I mean, Kansas State, new coach. Even though I think they're really good, new coach. Oklahoma State, new coach. Utah, new coach. I mean, I know Morgan Scalley's been there forever, but I just think continuity and culture is already set in Houston, whereas some of these other schools we're still trying to determine what they are.
No, good point. I mean, I think Utah too, to a degree, has that, even though they have the new coach and partly new coaching staff. I just think there's carryover from that program and how they've been. But I think you're exactly right. And like the other thing too is, the league has teams at the top, no doubt, but it still isn't, that diverse or dominant, I should say, to where like you're going to see surprise games and outcomes. I mean, last year, nobody would have expected West Virginia to beat Houston, any point in time. I think injuries, like when you play teams and how injured they are, will play a role in some of these games we're looking at from a preseason standpoint. Like, oh, that's a win. That's not a tough one. As you sort of try to parse out who has the most difficult schedule. Like some of these teams that we're looking at, we may not think their schedule is difficult, but based on injuries, based on how certain things go, their schedules can become a lot more difficult, a lot easier. I will say though, the one thing is for sure, which is that I think Cincinnati has by far the toughest schedule, and Texas Tech has by far the easiest schedule. Like, though, I think those two things are very obvious.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing, since 2021, there hasn't been back to back, Big 12 champions in this conference. So, I mean, last year, Texas Tech won, Arizona State won the year before that. But I'm just thinking, like, who is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, I know I wasn't here last year, but you had Baylor winning it, right? Last year?
Yeah.
And so, to your point about injuries and how what is going to happen as the season progresses, we could be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised at all that we'll be surprised.
Yeah, no, you're right. And look, I think in some ways you kind of hope the Big 12 doesn't have that many surprises, but it has certainly come a long way since being the league of parity, as we've seen coming into the last couple of seasons, to where like, yeah, big reason I picked Baylor to win last year was because this was a league of parity, and that, the one thing that you could depend on was that you were not going to be like the champion was going to be a team that was unexpected. And I think the Big 12 has turned a corner this year in that it's probably going to be one of two teams, Texas Tech or BYU, and most likely to be Texas Tech, even though we made BYU the consensus top. So, I feel like the Big 12 turned a corner from parity in that way, and we'll see if it plays itself out like that. Because if you have a Baylor or a Colorado crazy surprise team that isn't even on the board preseason that goes and wins the Big 12, you're kind of back to where you were, and that makes this league really fun. But I think the way that people perceive it nationally would not be very high, and if we're looking at potentially multiple playoff bids for this conference, I think consistency with Tech and BYU at the top is the most crucial aspect of this league that will help the Big 12 get multiple bids. Consistency at the top will be the best way for this conference to get multiple bids, regardless of how good a surprise winner might be. It really is about consistency at the top.
100% agree. And I know you mentioned earlier how we are in the minority by having BYU at the top over Texas Tech, but I think our mindset is the same, that they're both consistent. Personally, I think Texas Tech has more talent, but I think BYU has more consistency, continuity. They haven't had the drama of the offseason that Texas Tech has had. And I think because BYU and Tech don't play each other this year, this is their opportunity to say, let's go win this thing, unless they play each other in the Big 12 championship game.
It's Big 12 today. It's Big 12 radio presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Really excited to be talking with a professor at Arizona and the Big 12 faculty athletics rep at the University of Arizona, Ricardo Valerdi. He's got a new book out, and we are excited to talk with him as we get in on the professors now here on Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Latrell McCutcheon is a bad dude.
Pat McCutcheon absolutely changes this ball game.
Levitt thought about taking a shot. Instead, he takes his shot from Latrell McCutcheon. And McCutcheon with bad intentions on that hit on Levitt.
Mack, the second, is playing that defensive end spot. And Buren crushed on the corner blitz. There's Latrell McCutcheon, senior. First sack of the season, and it was a loud one.
Out of an empty set. Murphy finds Wells, can't hold on. And they rule that incomplete. Latrell McCutcheon, who Willie Fritz believes is an NFL player with the PBU.
Well, he is some player, not afraid to make tackles either.
High snap. Welch wrestled down the backfield. That's Latrell McCutcheon, a willing tackler.
You know, he's a guy he only goes about 185 pounds at 6'1".
Another bad snap and exchange, and McClellan has to run for it. He lost his hat. McCutcheon absolutely changes this ball game.
That's 126 nationally. Awful. Quick toss. Man. Gets popped. The ball is out. And it's out of bounds. Two leaping Cougars defenders. And Latrell McCutcheon and Sione Fotu
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, and I am really excited because the intellectual profile of this show is about to be raised to a very large degree. Professor Ricardo Valerdi from the University of Arizona joining us here on Big 12 Radio. How are you, Professor? Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, the cumulative ACT, SAT scores of the show now have just been raised to a large degree, so it's very exciting for me.
And we're test optional, you know?
But it was great at spring meetings, you know, because with spring meetings, you get introduced to get to meet a lot of great people. And, you know, there was a ton of professors representing each university that are what are referred to as Big 12 faculty athletics reps, which I didn't really know. And Ricardo, that you serve as that for the University of Arizona. So what does that exactly mean?
Certainly. So there's 16 of us, and at each campus, we support athletics in unique ways. One of them is we do all the academic certification for student athletes to make sure, confirm that they're academically eligible. But I think more importantly, we think about the health and wellness of student athletes, and we help navigate all the compliance complexities that you can imagine are, pretty interesting, especially with the transfer portal, with all the dynamics of students coming in and out of the university, changing majors, staying academically eligible. So at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure student athletes and coaches are successful.
Yeah. Professor Valerdi at the University of Arizona is a systems and industrial engineer professor, and of course, the Big 12 faculty athletics rep for the University of Arizona. And you've got a book coming out in September, right?
That's right. It's called The 5-Tool Team, and it's all about decision making, but inspired through sports examples.
And I mean, just give people a sense of so you've worked with SpaceX, you've worked with professional sports teams, you've worked with the U.S. Army, you've worked with Major League Baseball, with the NFL, with obviously, I'm assuming Tommy Lloyd and Brent Brennan and coaches on campus at Arizona. Just give people a sense here of what the 5-Tool Team is about based on your experiences in the places you've worked.
Certainly. So all those places that you mentioned all have to make important decisions, right? When to launch the rocket, or who to draft, or what strategic product to launch, right? And what I wanted to do in the book is bring together all those ideas so that any person out there, whether they're working in college athletics or in tech or in the government, can become better decision makers. So I give them 5 tools. These are the 5 things, and this is, if you're a baseball person, you recognize the vocabulary, right? A 5-tool player, and so the title of the book comes from that. If you're a baseball scout and you're evaluating how good a player is, you have 5 tools that are your checklist. Similar in decision making. So I'll give you one example of a tool that's important in decision making is how to analyze a decision in terms of the consequences of that decision downstream, right? So in the show, you all have obviously talked a lot about the federal legislation going on in the industry. So what are the consequences of that decision, of passing that bill? I mean, we have theories about what might happen. Well, will there be a super league? Will they break out? Will college athletics improve? Will they get worse? I don't know. But thinking about those consequences helps us make better decisions in the present because we're trying to forecast the future.
Yeah, it feels like humans do not have a great forecasting ability, and you can see that I think throughout history. Maybe not a forecasting ability, but maybe it's the ability to see the negative consequences of actions.
Yeah, and in fact, everybody has an agenda, and that agenda creates blind spots because we may look at only information that confirms our agenda, and we will ignore information that might give us reasons why we're wrong. Right. And so that's one of the fundamental principles of good decision making is you can't ignore that information. It's out there. It's facts, and you have to consider it, even if it counters your agenda.
One of the things that I think is really interesting this time of year for football in particular is, and this is true for college football and the NFL, where fans or analysts of teams have to parse through what do we know about a team? What are the facts? Where are the holes? And if you take it like a proper evaluation, you're going to come up with, okay, these are the facts. Like we know these things about these players and this team has these players. And so we'll know that. But then there's major question marks. What I find to be, again, funny is sort of like this is the time of year where all those question marks by fan bases are always answered affirmatively, right? Like, well, we have major question marks in our offensive line. Yeah, but we got this guy and they've never been in better shape and this and that and the other. So for me, like how, not just putting together a roster, but forecasting how a team might be is also really instructive here because, again, it's like this time of year is optimism reigns supreme. And we know that not everybody's going to be as successful and not all these questions are going to be answered affirmatively.
That's right. And in fact, your conversation about who has the toughest schedule in the conference is a forecast, right?
Yes.
And we're 5-6 weeks out from the whistle blowing. Talk to me 5 weeks into the season, and we'll see how good your forecast is. But you're making a decision based on incomplete information. That's okay. You're neutral, right? Because you have to treat all of the teams equally in a sense of like information that you're going to consider, information that you're going to ignore. And by the way, since we're talking about football, let me just put in a plug here. Fifita for Heisman. Jump on the bandwagon now. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon. Jump on it, man. You heard it here third. So
he's the best, by the way. He is just such a unique human being. And I mean, I maintain, we've talked a lot about this, like everybody claims everybody complains about modern athletes and he represents many of the things that we say we love our athletes to be. And yet he's not getting the respect nationally, I don't think, for it in that way.
Yeah. I mean, what a great ambassador for campus, right? Any president, any AD, any faculty athletics rep would love to have somebody like Noah Fifita representing the university in the most visible sport that has national coverage. I mean, it's a dream.
And, and not only what he does in the community, I mean, he's got, just so much that he does, but then like the ability to stick through adversity and, he has success his freshman year. His coach leaves. He could have, been very justified to leave with him as many players do. He doesn't, he sticks it through. He has a bad year. Could have blamed Brent Brennan, right? Could have pointed fingers and left, didn't, faced adversity. Like we talk a lot about some of these modern athletes and it's like, oh yeah, they don't want to have hard conversations and deal with difficulty and deal with adversity. They just run from adversity. It's like, well, here's a good example of a kid that didn't.
Yeah, and I was excited to see when his brother came to campus, and I'm sitting around like, do you have any more siblings we can bring to university? Bring up.
And he's a freshman now. Fafita's.
Yeah. That's right.
And he's a linebacker.
Sounds right. I mean, he's about the same size as Noah, so I'm not sure.
He's not a quarterback. That I can remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Ricardo, I have this question for you because I read that you developed the first ever concussion simulator for football in the NCAA. Can you break that down and just explain what exactly that is?
Of course. So before COVID, you remember the whole topic of concussions was in the national conversation, right? The movie had come out, and there was just a lot of awareness of CTE. And what the NCAA did is they paired up with the U.S. Army and they came up with a program called Mind Matters. And they wanted to basically improve concussion education. And they gave out a variety of grants to universities. We got one of those at the University of Arizona. And what we did with the money, what we proposed to do is, look, one way to improve concussion awareness is to educate student athletes on what a concussion may look like. And so obviously we can't simulate all of the side effects of a concussion, right? We don't actually want to hurt people. So the feel like part we had to exclude, but the look like part we could simulate in a VR headset. And so there's some side effects of a concussion, like you have extreme sensitivity to light, you have blurred vision, potentially double vision. So we programmed all of those features into a VR simulator. We actually scanned the inside of Arizona Stadium, or Casino del Sol Stadium now, and we created a little game where in first person, when you put the VR headset on, you are the punt returner. And immediately you get smacked. And you get up and you start to experience some of the visual side effects of a concussion. And our whole theory was that if you are aware of what those side effects are, you are more likely to report a real concussion when you get one.
Wow.
Wow.
You also have a nonprofit, Science of Sport. Tell people about what that is and what your mission is.
That's right. So that's the ultimate side hustle, that passion project that became side hustle.
Side hustle.
I'm a big numbers guy, as you can imagine, being an engineer, being into baseball. And after reading the book Moneyball back in, 2010, 2011, the idea that I got was, hey, why aren't we using baseball to get young kids interested in math and engineering? We got to do something about this, right?
Yeah, right.
Maybe just as simple as reading the back of a baseball card and understanding the stats on the back of the baseball card. And that kind of grew into a formal curriculum that I developed in partnership with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then we spun a company off out of the University of Arizona called Science of Sport. It's actually a 501c3. And the mission of Science of Sport is to bring math and science to life through sports. And although we started in baseball, because that's the obvious place to start when you're talking numbers, we quickly expanded into basketball, football, soccer, Olympics. And the mission is the same, is kids think they're just playing a sport when they're doing activities or camps that we're running, but in reality, they're doing math. They just don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it's funny you say that, because like I'm really bad at math, really bad at it. Like, and a lot of times publicly on this show, I'll do math and just embarrass myself. And so my thing growing up was like, I want to do something in life where I don't have to do math, which the joke's on you, right? You good luck doing anything without math, but especially sports, because like, to your point, like, yeah, maybe on the, like, it may look from the outside like there's no math involved, but there's a ton, and not just from a, like an analytic standpoint, but like, think of a football field. Like, math is literally everywhere. It's impossible.
Exactly. Well, and all right, let me challenge that statement a little bit. I bet you're pretty good at math. But let me ask you a few questions. And just
Okay.
just as a test, the answer to every question is the number 9. Okay, so here we go. I just gave you the answer to the test. So how many innings in a baseball game?
9.
How many batters in the batting lineup?
9.
How many defensive players on the field in baseball?
9.
See, Tamon, he's pretty good. What's the distance between home plate and first base in Major League Baseball?
90 feet.
What's 9 plus 0?
9.
Yeah, baby. How many regular games in Major League Baseball during the regular season? How many?
162. 9. Oh my God. That adds up to 9.
I will never look at it that way ever again.
What other 9s are there in baseball now?
Oh, so yeah, I can keep going. So to score a run, you go from home to first to second, and so all the way to home, right? So how many total feet, if you were to run them in the straight line, how many total feet? It's 90 feet times 4, right? That's 360 feet.
Yeah.
3 plus 6 is 9. That's
Okay,
wild.
to finish a baseball game, you have to play 9 innings, and you have to score 3 outs in each of those innings, right? So how many total outs to finish a baseball game?
So
3 times
27.
3 times 9 is 27.
7 plus 2 is 9.
That's wild.
You think Abner Doubleday had any sense of this?
Oh, of course. How many letters in Doubleday?
No way. This is like classic Who's on First Bet right here. This is great. You and I should travel the country doing this.
Oh man, we could have a whole shtick. Absolutely.
I'm going to see the Rangers and White Sox. White Sox are my team. I'm going to see them tonight. I can't wait. Very excited.
Oh, amazing.
I'm going to try to find more 9s while I'm at the game. I'm going to try
Absolutely.
to find that possible.
Yeah. I mean, look for like the seats, the sections in the stadium, the street address, you know, how many grams of sugar the cotton candy that you're going to eat has, you know.
That's amazing. This has been so much fun. It was great to visit with you. It's the spring meetings, and I'm so glad we had a chance to do it here on the show. Once again, just let people know the name of the book and where they could check it out, because I can't wait to read this thing.
Yes, the 5-Tool Team is available on Amazon or your favorite online retailer. It comes out in September. And if you want to think about how to make better decisions in business and life, this is your ticket.
Really excited to feature. This conference has so many great universities with so many incredible professors, and so great to be able to feature them and feature you, Ricardo Valerdi, the professor for the University of Arizona. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, gents. Talk to you soon. Bear down.
Thanks.
Take care. There he is, Professor Ricardo Valerdi, Big 12 faculty athletics rep at the University of Arizona, professor of systems and industrial engineering at the University of Arizona, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Gilkey off the hands of Record and intercepted. Genesis Smith, the safety, inside the 15.
Sorsby was. He throws. It's Cyrus Allen, and they rally to swing him down. Genesis Smith with great speed to the perimeter. Nice catch. Up, it's on the ground, it's fumbled, picked up by Arizona, and going the other way inside the 5-yard line, Genesis Smith.
There's so much to break down and get into when it comes to what we heard from the coaches and players at Big 12 Media Days. And if you've been listening to Big 12 Today and Big 12 Radio over the course of the last week plus, you've heard all of our interviews, all 16 interviews that we did with all Big 12 coaches and players. So there's a lot to digest and break down. So I figure over the next few weeks, as we get ready for the football season, we'll replay some of the clips, the best moments, to sort of contextualize some of these moments from Big 12 Media Days. We're going to do that right now. We've got Big 12 Today presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. A reminder, you can always stream us live and watch the video version of the show. Find all the platforms through big12studios.com. We're on Roku, Amazon Prime Video, DirecTV Stream, YouTube, Tubi, plenty of other platforms. Check big12studios.com to find all the platforms in which you can live stream this show each and every weekday morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Central. All right. Eric Bell, the TCU women's soccer coach, is coming up. They made it to the College Cup last year, an incredible run for TCU women's soccer. And remember, they're gearing up for the start of their season, which gets underway here in the next few weeks. But at Big 12 Media Days, we visited, of course, with all of the coaches, including West Virginia coach Rich Rodriguez. And, you know, it's always fun when you're kind of in the middle of an interview, asking questions and getting answers. But then when you have some time to sort of sit back and reflect and listen, you get a sense of, again, the context of each interview. And I would say with Rich Rod, it is no secret that he is extremely optimistic about his offensive line. When you go and listen to any of his clips and quotes from throughout this offseason, he will mention, like last year, that things did not go well on the offensive line. And as a reflection, probably a good reason for why the team overall wasn't very good. And at the same time, a lot of what we heard from him in our interview was going back to how he feels about the offensive line. In fact, there were multiple times he wasn't even asked about the offensive line that he went back to, well, how he feels about the O-line. But here's Rich Rod talking about the addition of Rick Trickett, his longtime offensive line coach. Here's what he said this is clip 12, on the optimism of his offensive line.
You know, Nick Cray, who's here last year, he was our best offensive lineman. You know, we were moving him inside, you know, I think he's an all-conference offensive guard for us. And then we got the other guy here, Jameer Latimer, who started for me as a true freshman at Jack State, started at Wisconsin, so he's a proven guy.
Yep.
And so we got him, you know, it's now you say he's not a returning starter, but he is a returning starter because he started in the Big Ten. He started it for us at Jack State. So we've got enough veteran presence to have some grown men on the field, but we also have some really, really good young talent that's going to be at West Virginia for the next 2 or 3 years.
All right, so there he is talking specifically about the offensive line, and now here's what Rich Rod told us at Big 12 Media Days of the impact that his offensive line coach, Rick Trickett, will bring to the table.
You know, we were able to identify a few guys out of the portal that were really good group of 5 players that wanted to move up and play at the highest level. And then, you know, Trickett has been in my system. He knows how it wants to be done. And he's still, you know, what's unique about Rick is that, you know, he still coaches like he's trying to prove himself every day. You know, and he's been doing it for years. He's the best technician I've ever been around. And he has a process that everybody has to learn when they want to play for him up front, and a certain level of toughness and intensity. And so it's great to have him back.
All right. So I think ultimately what you heard there kind of between the lines is, you know, Rick Trickett knows how Rich Rod wants things to be done and how he wants it coached and how he wants the technique to be done. And these are things that sometimes as a head coach, you've got to coach the coaches. In this case, though, he doesn't need to coach Rick Trickett because he already knows how he wants it done, because it's the same way that Trickett's been coaching it for decades. And the best part about it is that Trickett, as he mentioned there, has kind of always stayed ready because he just has this mentality of always trying to prove himself, even if he's been a coach as long as he has. This is the one that I think stood out to me more than anything with Rich Rod, when he talked about the strength of Michael Hawkins, the quarterback position, but then he goes back to the offensive line again.
I tell you what he is. He's really decisive. Is this what you want your quarterbacks to be? A lot of times when the quarterbacks, especially younger quarterbacks, they hold on the ball too much or they hesitate a little bit. And even in the spring, as he was learning, he was really decisive. So I think he's got a great ceiling. He had a really good spring. I feel comfortable with him. I feel comfortable with Scotty, and we got some good young quarterbacks as well. So, you know, I like where we're at. But I think the best friend for our quarterback is have a better running game. Yeah. And so we have all the whole running back room is new, but we bought the leading rusher back in the country in Cam Cook, who's played in our league before.
Right.
And been really productive. And then I think we have 8 offensive linemen that were starters in college. And so our competition up front is going to be really good.
Yeah, once again, our competition up front is going to be very good. So he's talking about Michael Hawkins, and he really likes how decisive Hawkins is. He mentioned sometimes young passers can be not as decisive, maybe a little bit skittish with where to go to the ball, but that Hawkins is decisive. And then he brings up that, hey, our running game is going to be really good because we've got a really good offensive line. So, again, if you're optimistic about West Virginia, and there's good reason to be, this is the optimistic time of year. A big reason for that would be what we've heard Rich Rod say all offseason about this O-line. I don't know if it's going to be great. I certainly think it's going to be good, but it will, without a doubt, be dramatically improved as an offensive line from where it was a year ago. Another part of the West Virginia team that probably needs to improve would be their secondary. The last couple of years, they've had the worst secondary in college football, or right about there. Here's what Rich Rod identified as maybe the biggest issue historically, certainly last year within their secondary, that they believe they have fixed. Clip 13.
The end, but we also signed some sneaky high school guys and junior college guys that we think that are going to be really good players. Like we were too small. We were getting mossed in the secondary. The kids were playing hard. We were just getting mossed. They were throwing the ball high. Well, now we got some corners that are 6'3", one of them 6'4". So we look better anyway.
Yeah. So mentioned, we just got mossed in the secondary last year, that there just weren't enough. There wasn't enough size, and they finally have some size in the secondary, which he thinks will be better. Rich Rod also, he mentioned this at the beginning of the interview, and I think this is really interesting. This is Rich Rod talking about how most important to his culture is discipline.
Well, you have to start that from day one. And to me, it's not a sometime thing, it's an all-time thing. And if you let one thing go, like say one guy loafs one time and you don't correct it, then you won't have the discipline that you have to have. And like I said, discipline's greater than motivation. Motivation is good because that'll get you started, but discipline will carry you through.
Yeah, it's fleeting. Motivation's fleeting.
Yeah, and I think your discipline is harder now than it's ever been because, the circumstances around, but it's still there. I still think good players want to be coached, and good players want to be in a structure where everybody has to be adhere to the same kind of rules.
I just think as a premise, motivation is fleeting, right? Like you're going to have every team is going to head into the season motivated, and each individual player is going to be motivated by, I wasn't a preseason all conference performer, or I'm trying to prove that last year wasn't the type of player that I am, or last year I'm trying to prove that last year was the type of player that I am, and I'm trying to be consistent. Everybody's got motivation. I love though that Rich Rod recognized that like motivation only gets you so far, right? It's the discipline from a team perspective to do the same, what could be viewed as minutia every day, but like you have to have the same process. You have to be disciplined in your workout habits, in your diet, in how you treat your body. Like these are the things that define success more so than motivation. I love that quote from Rich Rod because it's 100% right. Motivation can only get you so far. Motivation is fleeting. It's the discipline to do the things necessary to win every day in life that are the separators between those that do and those that don't.
Yeah, that quote makes me think, and I'm paraphrasing this next quote I'm about to say, but it was something similar to what like Kobe Bryant said. He said like practice was the real work, the game day was the reward.
Yeah.
I saw how disciplined he was, but it goes to the same point that Rich Rod just said. I mean, if you want to be great, it's kind of what separates great players or great coaches from good players or good coaches. It's how they're disciplined, how they're able to stick to a routine that's kind of unconditional, kind of untraditional, but they go out of their way to make them. That's what goes out of their way to make themselves great.
Yeah, no, well said. The last thing I wanted to play from Rich Rod was clip 17. And, one of the big questions that I have for them, West Virginia, is so like the way that West Virginia has built this roster is the right approach. However, ... by going after and getting transfers that have multiple years of eligibility left. That's the right approach, right? Because history suggests that your best success with transfers will not just be in year one, but rather in year two, once they're more seasoned within your culture and within your program. The problem here is that West Virginia's had that historically under Neil Brown. They have not been able to retain the top level players. So it's like, it's one thing to go out and recruit and be like, hey, in the portal, we want to get multiple year guys. It's another thing to actually have them become multiple year guys, because if they have success year one, they might be out the door with a higher paycheck in year two at another school. So I asked Rich Rod about how you handle that.
We don't have a lot of fluffy slogans, but one of us is earn success. And if you do well, we'll take care of you the best we can. And we've told that, and we've done that last year to this year, and we'll do it going forward. We got to reward the guys that have done well and proven themselves. But you still also got to have a little bit of money for the high school guys and new guys. It's just that number's just going crazy now. Getting high school guys getting $1.5 million based on what? Okay, they ran, they had a great high school career and they've earned something, but they haven't earned as much as what your current college players have earned. So, for us, we want to make sure our guys come. We take care of them the best we can. If they do well, they're going to get rewarded, and we're not going to let them leave. The retention part of it, now somebody may give them like double the salary somewhere, and they have that kind of $40-50 million roster, but we're going to try to keep all our good players.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like, of course, right? We're going to try to keep all of our good players. Well, of course you are, right? Everybody, that's the goal here. But I've seen historically, you look at Akeem Messidor, you look at some of the other guys, West Virginia's had a difficult time when guys outperform, they get to a certain level, they leave. Now, that was under Neil Brown. Maybe it was under, Ren Baker had been coming in since then. So you had kind of a different administration. So maybe things are different. I think Rich Rod has hit, has hit a grand slam here. If they have a group that comes in this year that has some success, maybe they finish 6-7 wins somewhere in that area. Thank you, Taman. And then challenge for a Big 12 championship in the next season by retaining those guys. If they do that, that's exactly the method and the mode you should take. The problem is, can they get there by retaining the guys that have success this year as multiple year transfers? That's the biggest thing. Can they do that? If they could do that, it'll be great. If not, then the 2-year thing doesn't make a difference. And the ramp up doesn't make a difference. And then you'd rather build like Scott Frost has at UCF, which is with just 1-year stopgap guys. You don't have to worry about them being for multiple years. So I would just say, again, if you're trying to build a championship team, the way to do it is, historically speaking, is the way Rich Rod is, through guys in the transfer portal that will come in for multiple years. The problem is, if you can't bring them back, it doesn't make a difference if they're multiple year guys, right? Then all they've used is West Virginia as a stepping stone to get to their next contract.
Right. No, I mean, building a culture takes time. It takes continuity. And when you bring in these transfer guys, your goal is not to have them for a year. And Rich Rod knows that. Rich Rod's not, a rookie. He's not a baby. He knows how this works. And I think that quote there is, he knows what he's trying to say, for sure.
All right, coming up next, one of the best coaches in the Big 12, Eric Bell for TCU women's soccer, just led them to the College Cup, and now they're gearing up for another season. We'll see what the expectations are for TCU women's soccer with Eric Bell next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Corner for Wyoming. And Sam Levitt on the move, completes the pass. There's Mateer, the tight end, and into the end zone for an ASU touchdown. Siobhan Mateer.
Levitt rolling out, throwing to the end zone. Touchdown, Mateer.
To go until halftime. Levitt will throw short to the tight end. There he goes. Touchdown, Sun Devils. Mateer, 16 yards, and it's 20-0. Steps out of the tackle. this one down the seam for a touchdown. Shimon Mateer with an 18-yard score.
It's Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo, and we are pleased to be joined now by Eric Bell, the TCU women's soccer coach, one of the top coaches in the Big 12, coming off a fantastic season last year, the first trip ever for TCU to the College Cup, and the Cardiac Frogs, 8 game time for game-winning goals in the 80th minute or later. What an incredible ride, incredible season. First off, Coach, thanks for your time. And I guess second, like, how much have you had time to really sit back and relax and think about what you guys did last year?
Not a whole lot. And the season it ends, and then the portal opens and all the different things happening as far as recruiting is concerned, and you don't really get a chance to really like relish in your success, or so it's all good.
Yeah, you start the season August 13th, the opening game of the season, August 13th, in Madison against the University of Wisconsin at 7 o'clock. So you get right into it. Your non-conference, you feature Alabama and Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas. So yeah, I mean, this is as difficult of a non-conference as I'm sure you guys have had.
Yeah, it should be challenging. I think at the end of it, if we do well, we might be the SEC champs. So
No kidding.
yeah.
August 27th is Ted Lasso night for TCU and Georgia in Fort Worth. What is Ted
Okay.
Lasso?
I did. That's a new one on me. So that should be kind of cool. I was today years old when I learned of that. So that should be kind of cool. I do enjoy the show, but it has nothing to do about soccer, but it is a cool show.
That's hilarious.
I'm just looking at the website, Coach. That's it. So who
Yeah,
knows what
well,
last night's going to be, but I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. So this should be kind of, we both are going to be looking forward to what the Ted Lasso Day has in store for us.
All right. Tell us about your team. Obviously you had
Yeah.
an incredible team last year that made it all the way to the College Cup, the Final Four. So what does this team look like this year? Who do you lose?
Lost a lot. Experience, depth, and all the things. And so we got basically a brand new team, a younger team, talented team, but we're just young and inexperienced. And so we're going to be relying on the kids who have been here for a while and kind of explain to them and try to get over to them what it is to play TCU soccer and what that means to them. And, hopefully, have similar success that we had this past season. But every team is a new team, and I don't want to put any undue type of pressure on this current squad. If you make it, I never talk about defending a championship because that's not what we're doing. We're not defending it. It's a new team and new players and new skill sets, and we may have to tweak the way we play, but for the most part, we do have a style of play that we do want to play, and it is part of our, in my opinion, part of our secret sauce to allow us to be successful. And so we gotta when Coach P was here, Coach Gary Patterson for the football team, he always used to say we got to grow them up, and I think that is pretty apropos for this group. We got to grow them up pretty fast. But the good thing is that we have 2 extra weeks of preseason to grow them up, which is awesome. And I'm thankful that the NCAA has finally basically come to their senses and allowed us to have 2 more weeks of preseason. Before that, we had the shortest preseason of any NCAA sport. And so, you're still trying to figure things out in game 1, and you just don't really have all the answers. And so I think hopefully now with 3 weeks to a month of training, we should have all the things figured out and go into the first game really, really prepared to play.
I'm curious, how much has the success helped you in recruiting?
Well, we'll see. We just are in the midst of recruiting the 2028 class, and we really like it. When the kids that have already committed to us, and so we have to have continued sustained success as we move forward to continue to attract the best kids in the country. But so far, so good with being able to attract a different level of kid for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess what you're saying is we'll see long term what it looks like. Did it have any help? Was it any help whatsoever in the portal or high school recruiting?
I think so. I think it helped definitely in the portal this past season, and we have some young ladies that maybe they wouldn't have looked at us if we hadn't advanced so far as we did, but we did. And now again, I think we're able to talk to a different level of kid, which is ultimately what we want to do. We want to be able to compete for Big 12 championships as well as national championships.
This is your 16th, 15th season?
15th. Yeah.
15th season.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to do some math in my head. Was TCU? Is TCU
2012? 2012 we got here, and that was the first year we were in the Big 12.
So your first year was Mountain West?
No, my first year was the Big 12 first year.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so got it. Where is the Big 12 just overall in women's soccer? How much have you seen it grow? I think I have good perspective on this. So as somebody that's
Sure.
over the last decade plus. And
Yeah.
you've seen this conference, even
Right.
more time that TC's been in it, have a lot of different members. So
Sure.
where is it now? And just give us
You know, it was interesting because when we first came in the league, it was 2012, and it was us, and West Virginia came into the league. And West Virginia was by far the best team in the league, and they ruled the roost for the first 5 or 6 years, where they just kind of like ran away with everything. And so they were the bar, and we always wanted to make sure that we were able to compete against them and ultimately beat them. And it took us a long, long time to do that. But now as you look at our conference, we had what 7 or 8 teams that advanced to the NCAA tournament from last year, so that's really good. And so I think it was half of the teams that we have in our league, so that's really, really good. And hopefully that level of success continues this fall, and hopefully we're still at the top of the mountain, but it's going to be rather challenging. But the league has definitely gotten better, to answer your question.
Yeah. What about the venues? The difficulty of playing some of these places.
Yeah, well, you got all these different time zones from, Eastern time zone to Mountain time zone, and you got elevations in Colorado and Utah and BYU to Florida, where you got, hell's hotbed, you know. And so we have it obviously here in Texas as well as, so we do look at that the climate as a home field advantage for sure. You have different styles of play, and I think we get a chance to go to BYU this year, which is one of the best venues in the country for women's college soccer, and they're averaging around 5,000 people a game, and they're yelling at us, and it's hard to communicate with the players on the field, and it's an awesome environment, especially if you're the home team. But if you're the away team, it sucks.
What'd you make of the World Cup? Obviously, we had the final yesterday with Spain winning the World Cup over Argentina. What'd you think of it overall?
Yeah. Awesome. 39 games, or 39, what was it, 39 something. I forget what the 39 is, but
games.
But it was awesome. 39 days. I think it was 39 days of the tournament. Awesome. I think that, from Canada to the US to Mexico, the venues were fantastic. The crowds were fantastic. And I think that here in the States, we got a chance to see how soccer is valued and perceived around the world, and how passionate these fan bases are around the world. And it was really, really cool to see. And I had a chance to go to a couple of games at the Dallas Stadium, if you will. I guess it's back to AT&T Stadium now, but I got a chance to go to a couple of games, and it was unbelievable. And it's definitely something that was on my bucket list, and I'm very fortunate to be able to go. I'm very fortunate that it was 20 minutes from my house, to be able to go and see these world-class games, and it was awesome.
Coach, what made break down what made Spain so good?
Okay, well, I think that as they alluded to on the broadcast, it is a countrywide philosophy, whether that be male or female, on how they're going to play. And they're pretty true to it, and they stick to it, and they train that way all the way up from 5 years old all the way through when you're with the full team. And so it is a national philosophy that they have been able to get across in a very, very awesome way. And if you can't stop it, well, obviously, as you saw yesterday, it's really you're going to have a hard day where they're going to have the ball the lion's share of the time. And Argentina was one of the best teams in the world, and they didn't have a shot, which is unbelievable in a World Cup final.
Yeah,
and so their best defense was just having the ball and controlling the tempo of the game, much like how we try to do it, but obviously not on the same scale. But it is the same type of way of thinking, and it's kind of hard to deal with if you just can't get the ball back from them.
Sure. One thing I do have also about your team, because one thing we talk a lot about on the show is building culture, building continuity. And you mentioned how, like, after you guys lost last year, the transfer portal came right away. How is it difficult to manage building a culture with a changing team every year?
Yes, I mean, every semester you're starting basically from the beginning again because you got a new group of kids that are coming into the environment, and then you have to kind of do your best as far as helping them understand what it is to be a TCU soccer player, but also what it is to be a soccer player on the soccer field and what that means and the roles and responsibilities that come with that to be able to play the style of soccer that we want to play.
Great stuff. Eric Bell, one of the best, most decorated coaches in across all sports in the Big 12, leading TCU women's soccer to the College Cup last year, hoping for more success this year. Thanks so much, Coach. Appreciate your time. And
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, brother. Go Frogs.
There you go. Eric Bell joining us here. They start the season August 13th, so less than a month. I mean, 3 weeks now appear away from the start of their season. It'll be TCU and Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin. All right, Big 12 today, Big 12 radio. Taking a peek at what's happening at SEC Media Days and what it might mean for the Protect College Sports Act. That's next. It's Big 12 today.
Across the field, and you've got number 88 to the bottom of your screen against a shorter defender.
Hoover again. Crossing pattern. End zone. Caught. Touchdown. It's a moot point now. It's Rogers, the tight end.
4 hours from campus in Fort Worth. 5 wide here and all sorts of time for Hoover with a dime down the middle of the field. DJ Rogers, the tight end, sets up first and goal for TCU.
The Red Raiders might say, if you could just get a redo on that one. Big play to DJ Rogers, the tight end, rumbling. DJ Rogers all the way down to the 25-yard line. Big gain there for this TCU offense.
Hoover 6 of 7 in this opening drive. He'll keep it. Just tosses it to DJ Rogers, and TCU on the board first. Snap back. That's always a good job by a defender.
Hoover, he does it again. No problem. DJ Rogers has it inside the 10, all the way down to the 8.
Hoover pulls it to the tight end, DJ Rogers. His second touchdown of the season.
As it was Barnes by himself for a moment. Swings it out. Rogers breaks the tackle, stays on his feet. Is decked out of bounds at the 30.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. SEC meetings are underway right now as media days starting to pop off for the SEC, Big 10 as well. Brett McMurphy about an hour ago tweets, SEC's Greg Sankey asked if it's real about SEC breaking away or just a negotiating ploy. Quote, they're real. The frustrations that bring them to the point of saying we should look at something significantly different, end quote. So, you know, as we've talked about the Protect College Sports Act, we know that there are legislators working in tandem with Greg Sankey in order to try to get some of the bill updated to where it's more palatable to the SEC and the Big Ten. But if they don't get it to a point where it's entirely palatable, they could very well leave, take their ball and go home. And I guess this is the latest example of that, Taman.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think McMurphy's quote is real, but I don't know if I buy that the SEC. I know they're gonna say it's real because that's in their best benefit to say it's not, but I'm gonna go out on the limb and say it's still a negotiating ploy. You know, they have leverage, I think, from a perception of getting it to the public, getting it out there. But I don't think they don't want the lawsuits that are going to come with that. So, and they're not going to talk about that because that's bad press. So I don't buy it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like and it's funny because it could be both, right? Like if Sankey's being asked if it's real or if it's just a negotiating ploy, like he could say, of course it's real, but it's also both. Like it is very much a negotiating ploy. It is very much real, which is what makes it a negotiating ploy.
Right.
Like,
Agreed. Yeah.
You're not negotiating. You don't have leverage in a negotiation based on a false premise here, right? So this is a true premise. It's just whether or not they're actually going to call the bluff.
Right. They can control the narrative publicly. They have the leverage is there to use that as a negotiating ploy, but will they actually do it? Highly doubt it.
Well, and that's where, like, I don't know that I highly doubt it. Like, I guess I'm a little bit closer to the idea of, like, I could totally see them doing it. It's just whether or not it would work. And, you know, what does it look like and how much, you know, how many fan bases and how many regions are you alienating in doing that? And then what is the long-term damage to the sport, right? I mean, that's like, I wouldn't say I doubt that they'll do it because I guess I'm a little bit more to the side of, like, I could see them doing it. It's just whether or not, like, they recognize the potential pitfalls of doing it. Right? If it's status quo, if they think it's just going to maintain status quo.
So I think in a weird way, we're kind of on the same page. Like, I agree with what you said. Like, sure, they can do it. I think the problem is like, if they do it, and this is where I get to the legal side. Ted Cruz kind of brought this up if the College Sports Act gets passed, Protect College Sports Act gets passed, the lawsuits, the negative publicity. If they do that, that will come their way. It'll look really bad. And I'm pretty sure the SEC knows that. But obviously, again, they're not going to put that out there into the public because there's no benefit to doing it. So for them just saying, yeah, we could break away, it's very real because they want to move the act, move the rules, tilt it towards their advantage.
So let me ask you something. So who would that, like you said, it would look bad to whom?
I think the other Power Four conferences would be really mad. I think there will be. I'm going to equate it this way, and I'm going to equate it with Texas Tech. When this whole Sorsby thing went down, I don't think they thought it was going to be the pushback from the other member institutions that they thought was coming. I think if the SEC breaks away, the SEC in particular, I'm not even going to bring up the Big Ten, but if the SEC breaks away, I think the backlash that they'll get from the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, and even members of Congress, especially as they're trying to correct this, will be very, very high. And I think it'll look really bad on them.
Yeah. I do wonder what, like, the general reaction would be too, because if we're looking at just the reaction from like fans of the SEC, would those fans would they celebrate it? Would they be happy about it? Would there be fans that think, oh, this is the last like this is the last knock to the collegiate model, and now this is completely done? Like I guess I wonder what just the general fans would feel about this if the SEC broke away. And because yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but wouldn't it take SEC fans and their fandom to really change the situation? Because if you leave and your fans are okay with it, like despite any of the negative from the outside, it might not matter because all that you are, all you care about is just how your fans inside feel.
I think each school is going to feel different, but I'll summarize the answer to that question. I think like any fan, as long as the team is winning, we won't care. They won't care. But
True.
if it's not
Deal with anything.
benefiting, yeah, if it doesn't benefit their team in a winning way, and what would that look like? I don't know. But if it doesn't benefit their team in a winning way, they're gonna have issues with it. Let's say they break off, right? And they do their own thing, but Alabama doesn't win, or Georgia doesn't win, or Texas or Oklahoma doesn't win. Then they're going to try to change the rules again. They can't blame anybody else. You guys did this on your own. Now you have this internal fight. And the fans in and of itself are going to be like, we're not winning. I know one thing. I know the SEC hasn't won in a while, but they ruled from 2010 to 2023, give or take. They're going to say, hey, we were winning before. We're not winning now. At the end of the day, for a fan, and Ari, you and I are both big sports fans, all fans really care about they care about a lot of things, but the ultimate comes down to W's and L's. And if the team isn't winning, all that other stuff doesn't matter.
Well, and it's interesting to frame it that way because, we're talking about a conference here that to your point, like has dominated, and has been on a dominant run that no longer is on. And so, I mean, if you follow what's happened, like let's say they break away from the NCAA, they do their own thing, but they're still a part of this college football playoff because that's, I guess, what we're looking at right now, right? So they're not a part of the NCAA tournament in basketball or any NCAA activities, but they are part of football. I don't see how they would suddenly get back to where they were. I feel like the SEC's time is over. And yeah, I'm sure the SEC will still compete for championships. But if they break away, I think their ability to compete for championships is harder if they break away than it is in its current situation.
Well, they start to isolate themselves.
Yes.
It's complete isolation. And I agree. Can they compete? Absolutely. But will they dominate like the run they had for a decade plus? No. Will they have good teams here and there? Yeah. But will those teams... I mean, let's look at basketball. I don't think anybody's looking at the SEC and saying, as good as they've been, Florida won a couple years ago. I think Houston was still a better team, but I don't know. I don't see the SEC dominates the TV rights. They dominate the public perception space. And the old saying is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Why bring on a negative connotation to your public sphere when you don't have to?
Yeah. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. The other thing that Sankey said this morning at the start of SEC Media Days when he was asked about a 2014 playoff, McMurphy tweets, quote, "We don't have any idea in the clear media interests in an expanded playoff. We do know what happened when we went to 12. Second, the calendar is challenging. You have to find places to play the game. The access point is important," end quote. I'm not sure how much I buy his comments there on the 2014 playoff. We don't have any idea in the clear media interests in an expanded playoff. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've got a pretty good sense of it. I think, if you say we don't have any idea in the ESPN interests in an expanded playoff, then maybe you're speaking for your own conference's interest, but there's an appetite for an expanded playoff. I think that is unquestionable. Now, if he's wondering what that appetite looks like in terms of monetary value, I guess that's the question, but we know that there was a appetite for it with 12 teams, and I would imagine with 24, there would also be an appetite. He said the calendar is challenging. That I get, especially from a conference championship standpoint, but that's been established. Finding places to play the game, I don't really understand that. Like that, I think you can find some places. I think you can find home venues to play these games. It almost feels like that's the least concerning thing of this entire ordeal.
Right. I mean, look, from a expansion, like any SEC, any Power Four commissioner, they have to, use the words that's going to benefit their conference the most. I get that. And as much as I want a 24 playoff, I do think the SEC does have some leverage here because of their media rights deals that they have, and they're going to say from their perspective why. What's in the benefit for us. So I don't know. Calendar is something that has been an ordeal. I mean, Big 12 coaches have talked about why are games going so late into January, so I get that. But I think that between the conferences and between the media outlets, they can make it work if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, there will be a lot of things you're going to hear over the next few days that will come out of SEC Media Days that you probably should roll your eyes at. This is definitely one of them.
The venue thing is ridiculous.
I mean, it just doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah, I mean, look how many people show up for it. Let's talk SEC, right? Texas, Oklahoma. How many people show up at the Cotton Bowl every year? If there is a football game to be played, fans are going to show up. Their games can be, that is not an issue at all.
Literally the least of any of the issues here.
Right.
The other thing you're going to hear a lot of over the next few days with SEC Media Days is strength of schedule. Like just get ready to roll your eyes at the SEC just absolutely going goo eyes over its own scheduling and how good it is and how difficult the conference is and how tough and nobody plays and nobody plays a tough schedule like we do. Nobody does. Oh, but the SEC, you're going to hear Tim Tebow talk about it nonstop on SEC Network. And look, when he played in it, it was that good. It ain't anymore and has proven that out. And yet they still act like they are. And yet we need to hold them accountable for not being that as good as they are. Because like in a world in which the SEC treats itself like it is the best conference by far, and in the world in which a hierarchy actually does matter and plays into this whole thing, it's important then to give a pretty good reality check to any of these conferences or any of these teams that think that they're a lot better than they actually are. It's one thing to say that in the NFL or MLB or whatever else, but in like college sports, it matters how good you are perceived. It matters to get you into the playoff. And so if there's a false narrative here about a conference that's helping it look better than it actually is, it should be called out for that.
I know this isn't popular, but I'm going to give the perfect example to the point you just made. I'm a Texas Longhorns fan, right? When Texas beat Kentucky last year in a game that went down to the wire that shouldn't have been, the only reason why Texas was still ranked was simply because of perception.
Yeah.
Their O-line was terrible. Arch was playing bad. Their defense wasn't playing well. I mean, Texas has a perception. And to your point, when it comes to the narrative, the SEC will talk about how their schedule is this and that and that and this. No, or how about this? Your teams just aren't very good. Texas wasn't very good last year. But they were perceived as being very good.
Right, because Sark goes in front of a camera and says, hey, if we don't play the Ohio State game, we're in the playoff.
And how about this? How about you? If I'm not mistaken, when they played Ohio State, the final score was 14-7. How about you just win the game?
Yeah,
it's not like you lost 58-7. Win the damn game.
No, I mean, one of the biggest issues that I have with the SEC overall is how much it trumpets losses as wins, just from the standpoint of, well, we played the game. The game was played. It's a win. Like that literally is what it feels like.
Yeah.
You're not winning even if you're losing by playing the game. That's not a win. You don't get to count it as a win.
And you know what? Hearing that, like, that goes back to my point about, like, if the SEC were to break away, they control the media sphere so well. I'm not knocking them, but they have a perception of they can control what goes out there. And again, that they're great at it, but why break it apart? Why make it negative if you don't have to?
All right, that's Taman, T. Chains Turner filling in today, both producing and filling in for James. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We'll break down what we heard from Willie Fritz, Morgan Scalley, Devin Dampier, plus all the other Big 12 coaches. We'll contextualize all of our conversations throughout Big 12 Media Days as we continue throughout the week. Plus, we're going to sprinkle in soccer and volleyball coaches as fall season is less than a month away. All right. Thanks, of course, to our great producers, Taman, T. Chains Turner. Thanks to Anthony Smith with Big 12 Studios. I'm Ari Temkin. Big 12 Today is back tomorrow, but for now, we're out. Peace.